Hi, everybody. I see Jeff's on mute and Michael's on mute. So I left a voicemail for David and I left a voicemail for Ed. And nobody's really said, and Connor thought he would not make it. So I will see. We'll see if we get David or Ed.
What is quorum, 3 or 4?
Well, quorum, technically speaking, is 4.
Okay.
So we need one more to have a quorum to get going.
I'm leaving at 7, so.
Yeah, and then we'll quit voting when you leave at 7. If we're lucky, we get
Okay.
both David and Ed. So I have my fingers
Okay.
crossed.
We can talk about the library while we're waiting.
Well, yeah, yes. Hey, but actually, I keep meeting, and I missed the last meeting, and I apologize for that. And how's it going? Because we could talk about that real quick.
It's going really well. It's going very well. Yeah.
Anything you want to share about futures or the building? The big question is the building. Any decisions publicly made about plans?
No, we're not going to make decisions for quite a while. Our process to really do these dialogues to get more input from the town and the community. And we're doing studies to understand the nature of the current building and what we can do with it or can't do with it. And once we have that done, once we know where we want to be and where we are now, we can start to plot how to get there. And
right.
I think that the most interesting path forward might be moving, actually, finding a new location, because that kind of takes away.
But are you making that public though? I mean, if I said that in public, would that be okay, or is that something you're just kind of thinking about privately?
Making in public that we're thinking about it. That's public.
As public. Yeah. Okay.
That's
cool.
Public.
Cool. Well, we're being recorded, so there you go. So welcome, Ed. I left a voicemail for David, so I don't know. I didn't get a yes or no whether he's coming. Connor thought he would have trouble coming. So we have our quorum of 4, however, plus our guest Ken, and thank you, Ken. So in any event, I will call the meeting to order. So I'll open the meeting at close enough to 6:30, so we'll call it good. Alrighty, and I know Ashley usually lets me share my screen, which I will do. I'll share the whole shebang here. We'll do the agenda first. Jeff has to go in half an hour, so in half an hour or a few minutes less than that, we won't have Jeff, so we'll get as far as we can. The agenda, open the meeting, we just did that. Adopt the agenda, we'll do that in a second, I'll go through it. Approve minutes, they fell on the 2 pages. A reminder about ethics forms being needed. So there are 2 of you on the call, I think me too, actually, needs to get the ethics form in. So that's just a reminder. I didn't know if people know who you are. And anyway, but if somebody's been bugging you to get the ethics form in, go ahead and do that. Okay, so telecommunications. So here's the agenda. An update on the telecommunications law conversation I had with Bill McKenna, because we're trying to get that out the door. It's not quite out yet. I talked with Kurt Critchie about housing, because this committee's going to get into housing soon. I wanted to run through that, and then we'll do kind of a deep dive into the aquifer. And so that's the plan, and then of course adjourn. So do I have anybody to approve adopting the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Oh, we got Michael on. Michael, you're on mute. He says yes. I'll take that as a yes. And I didn't hear Ed say no, so we'll say it's approved. Okay.
David's on the line now too, so you have all of us except Connor.
Excuse me? Oh, David.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So you approve the agenda. Thank you. And thank you for calling that out, because I couldn't see David on my, yay, perfect. So cool. We have a quorum plus 1, and we'll still have a quorum when Jeff has to go. Okay. So we've approved the agenda. we'll go to the minutes. And I know in a perfect world, I get all these things out way in advance, and I got these out like an hour ago. So the minutes, I'll put the minutes up. Don't know if anybody, don't know if you had a chance to read them, but I'll give you a moment to scan down my screen, and then I'll forward, and then we'll take a vote on the minutes.
Looks good to me. I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to scroll up, so at least we'll give people a chance to see the minutes page too, because they do kind of run over.
They kind of do.
They kind of do. Yep. Well, we wound up in a housing kind of digression, we'll call it, because it wasn't the topic of the day, but I did put in here some housing stuff.
Okay, I'll approve them. I second it.
Perfect. All right. All in favor of the minutes? Aye.
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 Okay. Well, sounds good. And I can't see Michael now. He's not on my screen, but that's, I'll assume he gave us a wave of yes. Okay. So back to the agenda. There we go. Okay. So the things to talk about, after we talked last time, I did have a conversation with Bill McKenna, and he had a couple of comments. One, he said, you make it look like the Phil law, quote unquote. And what that means is when, we'll go back to that. But when we're all ready, which we thought we were all ready, but we're maybe not, when we're all ready, I'll take the final thing that Ed sends me, and fonts. I know Ed said he used the same font, but I know the Phil law has, it looked like a smaller font and a 12 rather than a 16 and different things. So, the Phil law was the most recent law that the town is working on that's floating around planning board and whatnot. So one comment he made is make it look like the Phil law, which I'll do. I sent around on January 29th an email from Andrew Campanelli, and Ed did respond to that a few minutes ago, because my question was, well, we've been saying that we know, since Steve Romine found somebody who would fund Andrew Campanelli, and so Andrew Campanelli sent a 40-page document, which I sent around to everybody on January 29th, and say, I mean, since we know we're going to give this to Steve before we go to public hearing, because we want Steve's input before we go to public hearing, it made sense, since Steve already gave us input, before we send this around, we should take a look at what Steve sent us, which is Andrew Campanelli's report. We should take a look and just see if there's anything we think needs to get added, because, why not do it now? Then we'll be more complete when we go around. And what Ed just sent an email to all of us saying is that there was page 31 in this 40-page report, and that, and I'm just gonna make notes while so page 31 of Campanelli's report, he was going to take a look at some visual stuff, and so he may in fact update his law. I can't call it his law, it's our law, but I give Ed full credit. And I know David worked with Ed, but I still think of it as Ed's law. So anyway, so the telecommunications law that we thought we're done with, we're kind of not done with, because it just makes sense to do this last step. Let's fold in what Andrew Campanelli did. And I can't say I read every word of the Andrew Campanelli document, but I can say I read a bunch of it, and I want to read every word, because a
lot of it is pablum. There's not, he's looking to get a gig with the town to rewrite the whole law. So he gave as little as he had to do. And it's a lot of padding, but there is one interesting section. I want to check our current version of the telecommunications law to see if it does have a visual impact analysis allowed for every tower application.
Okay.
And if that, I don't remember putting that in ours, so I could probably find a section to insert a visual, to allow neighbors and the town and the planning board to see what the visual impact of a tower will. So that's a good idea. But the rest of it, I mean, it's okay, but it's not it's not uh, precise language for use in our zoning law.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
this visual, I will work on it the next day or so, and I'll send it, and I'll insert it into our uh, telecommunications law, and I'll send it to you and to the rest of the committee and see if it's okay. And if it's okay, checks out, then you could send it to Romine or whomever you want to send it to. I don't care.
Okay. Well, the next steps, what I will do is I will, if you know, as I look at the fill law, if it doesn't look just like it, fonts and all this stuff, then after I get it from you, I'll convert the fonts and away we'll go.
Yeah,
What
that's
so
fine.
okay. So the steps that so what Bill McKenna said, and you know, because I talked with Bill McKenna before about what are the steps, and then I talked with him again, and it was you know, a couple of days after we all had our meeting. And so the steps are almost identical, but I think he's thinking slightly different from perhaps what he said before, but it's the same basic flow. And so the idea is us, the ZRC, me, would send it to the town board. The town board then would send it to the planning board and probably Matt Rudikoff at the same time. So it'd be the planning board and Matt Rudikoff. Matt Rudikoff is the town planner. So he would probably send it to, and it would be the supervisor at that point would be sending it around. So I would send it to the town board on behalf of our committee. The town board would send it to the planning board and Matt Rudikoff, the town planner. Perhaps also, I know Bill has said before the Association of Towns, but this time he said
important.
Association.
It's important to get a good legal, you know, if the Association of Towns is free. I mean, if we pay a membership, right? So
right.
So we don't have to pay their attorney. If you have to pay Mr. Campanella to go through what we've written, it will cost $20,000, I would guess, at a minimum.
Right. Okay. So we
get the Association of Towns to do go through it and analyze it a little bit for free, then why not try to do that before you send it to the planning board? Rudikoff is not a I mean, he'll have to hire somebody. There needs to be an expert in telecommunications law. Take a look at this. And if we can get the Association of Towns to do it free, we'll save our town money. I don't know. Or you can send it to Rudikoff, but Rudikoff will have to send it out to, farm it out to another zoning expert.
Well, right. There you go. So, okay, right. Okay, looking for to review. Okay. So, and I'm going to do a save as so that I'm not getting this confused with actually, I'm going to make it minutes because this is kind of minutes here because I don't want to mess up what we had there, but all right. So then the plan is, after it's been through that set of people, sending it to the county planning board with the seeker initiated by the town board would be the next step. And the idea is we would actually give it to Steve Romine. I think we're thinking that we would give to Steve Romine after some of these official people have looked at it, but before we go to public hearing, we want Steve Romine to look at it. So so Steve Romine likely between steps 3 and 4. Well, before we go to the public hearing, the thought is Steve will have looked at it, and as will all these groups. Then we're ready for public hearing, and then it would become law. So that's the current path of how we think this telecommunications law is going to evolve.
Well, okay, but I still think we need an expert in the language of telecommunications law.
Well, Ed, didn't you mention that they should put a moratorium on towers right now?
Another issue is to, I wrote language for a moratorium on 5G applications till the town rewrote its zoning law, but that's another issue. There's also the issue of a resolution by the town board to call for a health study on 5G. The Federal Communications Commission has a new woman who's the head of it and who is allegedly much more environmentally sensitive than the guy that Trump had in there. So the community is thinking that she might come out in favor of doing a health study of the impact of 5G before any actual 5G is allowed. But meanwhile, Elon Musk is sending up satellites, 5G satellites overhead. I don't know how he's, I think, planning to send up over 100. And Jeff Bezos is fighting with Elon Musk because Bezos wants to be the one that puts up the 5G satellites overhead. There's 2 or 3, 400 of them they want to blanket the skies with. So, but meanwhile, it wouldn't hurt for the town to put out a resolution calling for a health study, you know, to the Federal Communication Commission, this new woman whose name has slipped my noggin, but she's supposedly really good. And maybe a resolution by the town board directed at the new head of the Federal Communications Commission, something like that. Because Romine sent out a press release of a scientific group that just had a press conference calling for that.
That was a very interesting conference that the recording was. And it looked like the judges were looking favorable at it. So there may be, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the email, Steve. I should be looking for a Steve Romine email.
Yeah, it was the health, I don't know, it didn't have his name on it.
No, he just forwarded as.
Yeah.
It
was a health.
It's a group of organizations concerned about health and 5G radiation, calling for a study.
Okay. Okay, I'll look into that. So, all right, all righty. So anyway, so here are the steps, and I've made a note here. You know, we recommend all of these and looking for a zoning telecommunications expert to review the law. Right, because I hear you on the other thing. So, okay, so that's the plan there. So I wanted, before we get into aquifer, the other thing I wanted to touch on was I had a housing conversation with Kirk Ritchie. I know at a previous meeting, or I think 2 meetings, we had gotten into conversations about housing and the importance of housing, and we had agreed as a committee that instead of we're doing telecommunications first, aquifer second, and then we were going to do scenic overlay third, and we've really moved scenic overlay down to number 4 so we can make housing number 3 because of the criticality of the housing crisis. So in any event, we're talking about ideas about housing, and that's what I documented in the minutes from last time. And I wanted to get with Kirk Ritchie because we were, you know, our committee was coming forth with ideas for housing that were really beyond zoning. And I know what I was saying was, I think that we need to, I think that we need to, you know, we are zoning, so we are going to be doing zoning changes in support of housing needs, and the housing needs are really being driven, I believe, out of our housing committee. So I got on the phone with Kirk Ritchie and we talked, because he and Susan Goldman are the head of the housing committee, but I work with Kirk on the comprehensive plan, and he and I had a really good conversation, and he agreed that, I mean, he agrees, and he's certainly welcoming. I know Jeff and Connor had very passionately wanted to get more involved in some of the housing, you know, problem solving. And so Kirk said, yeah, he certainly agreed, sure, come on into their meetings, because ideas that we had bandied about, well, what about the Xena school? And, you know, they weren't really zoning things we were talking about, but we were kind of going off our zoning track to say, you know, brainstorming ideas to solve some of the problems. But Kirk's committee has already looked into the Xena as a possibility. So as we look into things, there is a housing committee, and that's Kirk and Susan Goldman's committee, and they're they're already diving into some of these things. So as we and what Kirk said, and the other thing that we said 2 weeks ago was, wouldn't it great to call in? We specifically said Pat Ryan and March Gallagher as they're addressing housing, but what Kirk and Susan and the housing committee is doing is they're calling in. There's some people, and let me see if I can quickly pull up. Scheduling made easy. Where is it? I'm probably not going to be able to find it. What it is here we go. I put it in my own PowerPoint. I'd have to look a bit to go find it, but there's a housing seminar that's going to be 2 weeks from tonight, same time as our meeting, and I think that we ought to just go to that, because we want to do housing next after Aquifer. And so what this meeting is, presented by, and let me shrink this so that it comes out a little and hopefully gets a little bigger here. Okay, but all of our people were covering it. Anyway, presented by the Woodstock Housing Committee and Ulster County's Housing Task Team, highlights 2021 initiatives aimed to address the housing crisis in Woodstock and all other Ulster County communities. Presentations by Evelyn Wright, Deputy County Executive, Susan Goldman, co-chair of the Woodstock Housing Committee, some other things about Susan, Kirk Ritchie, co-chair of Woodstock Housing Committee, etc. It's the exact same time as our meeting. And again, I think that we all ought to just go to that. And so when I got the email from Kirk about an hour ago, I forwarded it to everybody. All you have to do is click register, and then this pops up saying how to join the webinar and all that stuff. That stuff all popped up because in the email I send you, click register and you can do it. I think the best use of our time in 2 weeks, given that the next thing we want to deep dive is housing, and given that and one of our ideas was, why don't we talk to the county? And it's already happening. I think we ought to just go to that in 2 weeks instead of our meeting, because that's a way for us. We were saying, well, what's the best way for us to reacquaint ourselves? We had Kirk Ritchie and Susan Goldman come to our meeting months ago, but that didn't hit the top of our priority list yet. And now that it is hitting the top of our priority list, we're saying, well, how do we dive back into it? Well, I think this is a perfect meeting. So I just wanted to ask, is everybody okay with us going to this meeting instead of ours? Because then we'll be briefed on what's going on across the county as well as Woodstock. And that's going to help us start getting our direction for what we want to do for zoning. So my idea is we don't have this meeting in 2 weeks. We go to the housing meeting with the county. And is that okay with everybody?
It's okay with me, I guess. Was it a Zoom meeting?
Yes. So if you go into the email I just sent like an hour ago, you would just click register. You would get this information that I'm looking at in the PowerPoint is because I captured it. As I captured it so that I would know I had it, because sometimes it's hard to find emails, they fly around. So this was the welcome page, so to speak, that I got when I registered. And since I may never find it again in the web, I just captured it here. Well, Jeff, I know you were speaking passionately about housing. How do you, and I know you got to go in 6 minutes. How do you feel about
definitely
attending?
we should listen to what they have to say, but I think that there's different avenues in housing, and I think that the avenue that the county is likely to take has little to do with zoning because they don't have any zoning laws, right? They're not a zoning group. I do think that we can also really start looking about what it is in our zoning law that's preventing or making it more difficult to have housing. So I don't think we need to do one or the other. I think we can kind of do both because this is a pretty critical need and a pretty critical demand. So, I think I'm not sure any of these groups are looking specifically at zoning. They're looking at other ways, other things, other mechanisms. And I don't know exactly how to, focus our efforts on what we can take care of, which is the zoning law.
Well, but I think the start is getting a common plan of action of what we as a town want to do for zoning. And I love the idea, and I think it might have come from you, Jeff, that although I think the idea that I heard was specifically calling Pat Ryan, the county executive, as March Gallagher, the controller. But here is a whole group who's working on housing, and I agree with you 100%. Is they're probably not looking at zoning. However, hearing as people are brainstorming ideas of how to make the housing situation better, I do think hearing what they have to say, because we're about to be diving into this, let's hear what everybody has to say, because then we're going to be partnering with the Woodstock Housing Committee. So as we partner with the Woodstock Housing Committee, who will be helping identify Woodstock's path forward, then we'll know what we think we want to do. So Jeff, you're okay with going to this meeting in 2 weeks rather than us? Because it's
yeah,
really
I'm okay with it. Definitely okay with it. But I also think we need to really start focusing our efforts too. I think we need to. Yeah.
Like workforce housing, we could think of having a floating workforce housing zoning district.
Mhm.
Right.
And figure out the rules so they couldn't be taken over by people making too much money off of it, but
Right.
have a floating zone called the workforce housing zone, and figure out the rules for placing it in different parts of the town.
Right.
But
And that's, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
nobody's talking about that.
Well, they are actually,
Yeah, I
they
agree.
are.
And
They are, because that's what we have, a housing committee. And I talk with Kirk Ritchie, and they are talking about that. They're talking about exactly that. They're talking about floating zones. They've been doing research about what other towns are doing. They've been building ideas, and a floating zone is, and that's because we haven't partnered with them yet. The reason why we don't know what they're already doing is because they're meeting just like we are. And until we partner with them, we're not going to know what they're doing. And we've got to start partnering with them to catch up to where they are. They are talking about floating zones. They're talking about having finite criteria. So if you meet this certain criteria, we'll have a floating zone. And if you meet this criteria, then you may be in this other zone over here, but the floating zone, you can apply, or whatever word you want to use. But if you meet the criteria for the floating zone, then you can get the benefit of that floating zone. So they are talking about floating zones. It's just we don't know it because we haven't partnered with them yet. But they're already down the road. They've been working for a year on this, and they're already further down the road than we know because we haven't partnered with them again.
Well, it's still a zoning issue, and it's still black and white letters inserted into our zoning law. And that is what we have responsibility for. So they can
Right.
come up with all the ideas that they want, but it is our committee that will write the text for the law.
Absolutely, yes.
So, I'm willing to go to, look, I've watched Susan Goldman talk before the for the town board. She's really great. She's got her heart in, but it's in the details. And we are the people that have charge of the details. That's I'm
yes.
willing to go to this meeting. I don't care. I mean, it'll probably be interesting.
I also think it would be interesting to look at how other towns are doing these floating zones and what we want to do. There's, if it exists in the world, we can look them up and see how they're doing it. And, I actually like the term sustainable community housing personally more than workforce housing, but that's just my own preference. But I think that's something that we can do and we should take a look at.
I agree. I think it's a good idea, but I've watched committees proliferate. The thing about a committee is that it's like a kudzu vine. One committee engenders another, so we have to keep our eyes on the prize. Our eyes is our prize, is our zoning law. So
yes.
So whatever Mr. Ritchie and
I know Jeff's got to go.
Okay. See you, guy. See you later.
Yeah. And then the other thing I did want to share is the comp plan, because a lot of our committees came out of the comp plan. And the other point that has been made, well, by Ken, because I know Ken was at the Woodstock Environmental Commission meeting, the WEC meeting that I was at, and he brought this up, and so did Bill McKenna. I talked with Bill McKenna, but the comp plan said, as the survey was done, it's important to Woodstockers to keep wide open spaces. Wide open spaces are important to Woodstock, and affordable housing is important to Woodstock, and in a way they conflict. So the real challenge is going to be, how do we meet the need for the wide open spaces that everybody, not everybody, but a majority of people in Woodstock said, let's keep our wide open spaces, but also let's have some more affordable housing. Well, if you have a wide open space like the Xena cornfield, everybody loves the Xena cornfield, and I think the Woodstock Land Conservancy's already bought it up, so nobody can build there, but it would be a handy place because it's flat and it's accessible, and it's right there on Sawkill Road, and or Xena Road, I guess the case may be. But the point being, there are going to be some challenges here to meet everybody's to meet everybody's objective, because we need to have some idea. And I think the guidance should come from the people of Woodstock themselves. We need some guidance from the people of Woodstock in terms of how much more density do we want? Do we want density in the wide open spaces? Because in the comp plan, they said, don't do that. But maybe we have more density in the hamlet of Woodstock. But then we get into what we're about to talk about now, which is the aquifer, because in the aquifer, we probably don't want more density right over the aquifer. Part of the hamlet's not right over the aquifer, but part of the hamlet is. So we have a lot of conflicting objectives here, and it'll be tricky to figure out how to meet each objective in the best way to not clobber the other objectives. So anyway, just that's the other point I want to make. So in any event, with that, we'll move on to the aquifer. I know we've taken up half of the meeting. So the things for the aquifer, and I've been looking over the 3 documents, and I printed off the 3 documents, and I printed off, and I'm not sure if everybody on the call has read all of them. Your homework. Let me stop sharing my screen for just a moment here. Everybody's homework was to read the 3 documents, and I sent it in an email on January 11th so that everybody would have it. And I just read it, frankly, before this meeting. I appreciate, well, several things. One, I appreciate Ken sharing the information, because he shared the map and he shared the planning board response. I appreciate Ed sharing the law, because I realized that, I was part of the group for a while, and there was a proposal. And then what I kept quoting was that first proposal and the planning board's response to that, which clearly the group that Ed continued with, and I think I wound up not being part of that group anymore. What Ed sent us was then the follow one, the latest. So I didn't recall actually reading this particular before. So here we are, and thank you to Ed for sharing that. So we've got the new proposed law, and I was also crawling through the planning board's responses. So the decision.
Did you ever publish those responses? I never seen them.
Well, I sent them in the email that I sent on January 11th. So I'll go back, and I'm going to share my screen again.
Well, the planning board basically said, wait for the comprehensive plan. And they did have some language, but basically they didn't have any real serious critique of that. I just read through it again tonight. It's okay, but they wanted to stall off. First of all, they had a scheme to build the sewer out into the Bearsville Flats, and thanks to Ken Panza, they brought in the state health department, who did an analysis and came to the determination that the sewage system doesn't have to be built to the Bearsville Flats, because there's no imminent danger of sewage contamination of the aquifer. So and also the planning board proposed changing the light industrial designation to neighborhood commercial, which would allow a service station to be built on the mountainside of 212 out there in Bearsville, or a restaurant or a service station with a food source, or a hotel or a motel out there on the flats, if they change the light industrial designation to neighborhood commercial. So the planning board, you know, they had a really mixed drive and mixed message on what they wanted. And I think the law that we created and proposed in 2017, plus the map that Ken has provided, provides a basis for passing, because it will protect this 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000-year-old aquifer for the next 100 years from, and it won't impose. Look, there's only two big property owners in the two districts, the two neighborhood commercial districts, that are in fact impacted by this zoning change, and they stand to have the opportunity to make a considerable amount of money by this zoning change. But should we support it? Just because and I asked the woman who's on the zoning, the comprehensive plan committee, why they decided to ask for Bearsville light industrial districts to be upzoned. And she said that there was a person at a meeting in Xena who brought it up, a single person. So that does not seem to me a powerful enough reason to have a zoning change, which will impact the aquifer. If you allow gas stations and hotels and medical facilities, well, you can build medical facilities in a light industrial district right now, but so I don't know. It just seems to be unnecessary to pay much attention at all to the planning board recommendations, because it's all cloudy.
Well, I have them up here. I'd like to go through them one at a time. So this is what I have. So they've got 5 items. And they got more main points. Anyway, is the zoning ordinance change consistent with the purposes of zoning in that district? Planning board response: yes. In a new water supply protection, and they say what WSPL stands for up here, water supply protection law. So. Well, actually, let me just take this from the top here. Okay, is the zoning ordinance? And I know the ZO spells that out somewhere. Yeah, zoning ordinance change. Is zoning ordinance change consistent with the purposes of the zoning in the district? Yes. In a new water supply protection overlay district, it is consistent. However, the planning board has concerns and positive suggestions discussed below about the adoption. So number 1 just says, hey, we got suggestions. Number 2, what areas and establishments in the town should be directly affected and how? Certain defined new land uses and expanding land uses, right? That didn't tell you a lot. Would additional developments stress public services and facilities? New or expanding development opportunity is very limited. The planning board report includes public facility recommendations. So they don't think there's a lot of new development going on. So that was one thing the planning board said. Not a lot new going on. What are indirect implications of such change and its effect on other regulations? The regulations in the proposed law overlap with the various existing zoning ordinance and other regulatory measures, but does detail out certain new standards, new prohibitive and exempt uses. The level of procedural and regulatory detail is out of proportion with the likelihood that any new activity remotely possibly affecting the water resource will occur or not be reviewed in exceeding detail by various agencies on water resource related questions. So
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
I mean, if you were there's one big parcel by the fire department, which they could put a Walmart in there or something. It's so big. It's actually it's 2 properties owned by one person. And I don't know, they could change Howard, what's his name there? The guy owns the
Miller Howard.
Miller Howard, yeah. You know, they have a big building there as well. You know, behind the restaurant.
Right. Okay. So the first three items didn't have a lot of stuff of value. So you and Ed both disagree then with number 4, it sounds like. Is the zoning ordinance change consistent with the comprehensive plan? Well, the comprehensive plan came out a year later, but in any event, in general sense, water supply protection will obviously be consistent with comprehensive plan objectives, but the planning board believes some of the decisions and aspects could have far greater beneficial effect than the law at this time and should be considered by the current comprehensive planning effort before it's adopted. In summary, the main points are: do not adopt the law as currently proposed. Although the current law is a far more functional proposal than the prior. The prior one was the one that I knew about. Anyway, it's more functional, but there are various reasons for not proceeding. There's a very limited potential of actual water supply protection because it only addresses certain new land uses and certain expanded uses and extremely limited development opportunity, but you're saying we disagree with that. There are other areas of the law which it believes should be discussed, including where it fits in the ZO, the law boundary, and that there are already many existing provisions empowering and requiring that the planning board address water quality protection issues. So they think that they're already having to address water quality protection issues and don't need this law, and they think there's not going to be a lot of development, but it sounds like we just disagree.
Well, I definitely disagree because
Okay.
they wanted to make a sewer. You know, a sewer line going to the Hamlet line.
Which we don't need, right? Which
Right,
we
and
don't,
they said they don't need that. So the point is you got to protect the water supply.
yeah. Okay. So, okay, the next item, comprehensive plan. Aspects of water supply protection should be addressed by the comp plan committee and town board about which water protection measures could provide the greatest long-term water supply protection before the law is considered for adoption. Well, we've done the comp plan committee, so the comp plan's done. Planning board believes that the concrete actions of extending the current effluent collection system in Bearsville Flats and vicinity and a water supply protection educational program could have greater beneficial effect. So we've already said we don't need, and Ken's helped us understand that we don't need to, the effluent collection system is the sewer system, I think. Ken has already given us facts that say we don't need to do that. So as far as number 2, no sewer extension needed, we believe no sewer extension. I'm trying to get my needed, number 1. And number 2, and they do think that they say an education would have greater benefit than the law.
Well, I think education is good.
Yeah. So we like education, but it's not going to replace the law.
Because the education is takes a lot of work. You have to print up things, you have to mail them out, you have to have public meetings, whereas a law just lurks there in zoning law and has impact long after we're gone.
Yeah, right. I think, just if I can interject, I think the aquifer, our group would be focused on the educational component and what to do there, because the Department of Health to work on that. So I don't really see the educational component being a zoning issue.
Good point. Good point. Right. Well, they're saying do it instead. They're saying education is more important than the zoning, so they're saying do it instead, but we disagree.
I disagree with that.
Right. For committee, yeah, and good point about the aquifer committee doing the not the ZRC. Okay, cool. Okay, so we right. Okay, so that was number and then they talk about extension of the septic tank effluent collection system, but we don't believe that that's needed. So number 3, we disagree. And number 4, now they're going more into detail about extending the septic tank system, and they're going into more detail about education. Okay, so we can skip over all that. And then they give a whole list of stuff about what ought to change in the law and how somebody other than them ought to write it. They're just saying what they think ought to change. So we basically, on their main points, though, as Ed was saying before, and we're just saying, no, we don't. Well, so they do have a bunch of things I don't know if we should go through these or not, but in any event, it sounds like, Ed, you've gone through everything and you say leave the law the way it is. Dave, well, Dave, you said you haven't seen this email before, so
No,
you
I hadn't
haven't,
seen that part. All right.
so you hadn't had a chance to look through this yet. I'm just trying to go through it enough to be comfortable, because if we say, hey, we've looked through it, we're ignoring everything the planning board said, I'd like to be able to be diplomatic.
Well, we
You know, I
could
mean,
give our reasons.
well, there you go.
You thank the planning board for their input as required by the Woodstock zoning law, and the various points were examined by the zoning revision committee.
Hmm.
The decision was to propose that the law and the map be presented to the town board for consideration, in that it's basically the same law that was passed
Right.
in 2007, or whenever it was passed, and they neglected to file it with the Secretary of State's office in a timely way, and therefore the law was not passed.
Right. Got it. Okay. All righty. Sounds good. I want to skim over this to see if there's anything else. I know since David said he hadn't seen it, see if there's anything. And Michael, I definitely appreciate you being here. Oh, now you're off mute. So if you wanted to weigh in, I'd love to hear what you have to say. But if you don't want to weigh in, that's okay too. Okay. So let me just see. Yeah, so the planning board concluded, and I will go through this. The planning board concluded protective measures proposed in the new law could be obtained with minor revisions to existing zoning provisions without creating a new overlay, new special permit, or new procedures. Protection of the town's public water supply resource extremely important. Recommendation that the law not be adopted, but key provisions and definitions be incorporated. So they're saying don't do the law as it's written, but take some of the pieces and just update the current zoning ordinance. Most important for accomplishing the greatest water supply protection, expanding the town's central wastewater system. We've already said we're not going to do that. We agree to public education, but it's not going to be the purview of the zoning committee. Issues important provisions include the boundary. So what they didn't like, and I know that, when the time I spent on the Aquifer Committee, it did make sense to me, actually, that boundaries would be along property lines, because then somebody knows, hey, my property is affected versus somebody else's property is not. The planning board never liked that, because they say it really ought to be the line of where the actual, boundary is. But then if you're a property owner, but anyway, so it's an argument. That's their argument, and he says why certain properties are not included and why in the Horsley-Witten maps referred to in the law, the larger depicted aquifer area is left entirely unaddressed. So, and if I flip over to I don't know if you can see this, but the red is the water supply law. The wellhead protection area is and potential future water supply site. So the slashes are the future water supply site. This blue that's hard to see, but here it is. The blue is the wellhead protection area. The slashes, again, potential future site. And they're arguing about, they don't like the map and the fact that it goes along property boundaries. But if it didn't, how would you know what part of your property is in it and what part's not? If your property's either in it or not, then it's pretty clear whether you're in it or not.
But see, one thing it does, it protects the future water supply. This is a gift that we're giving to the town that will last hundreds of years. I mean, this
Right.
So
okay.
The key to the law is this aquifer protection area. So you just have to think a language that is not hostile, but and thanks them for their good work, and that we have, after what Ken's group did, we've decided to accept the law basically as it is, and float it forward. I don't know.
I mean, why don't they just reinstate the Aquifer Overlay District law?
That's what we're doing.
Right. Right. Believe it should proceed. Now we call Ken's group. Ken's group has a formal name, right?
Yeah. What's your formal name, Ken?
I don't know, I sent you all the documents. Whatever it said on the letterhead.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Aquifer
Okay.
Protection Working Group, I think is what we called ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. I'll call you that. Protection.
You guys got to read what I sent you.
I've got it up. I got it up on the screen. I did.
I know you lose it all.
Yeah. Thank you, Ken. That is said lovingly. Thank you. Okay. So okay. So the committee so we'll need a quorum for this, but we have a quorum. There are 4 of us. So so I think I'm believing there's a motion on the table, is what I heard Ed say. A motion to forward. Okay, so I'm gonna start on a new page here. Motion to thank the planning board for review and hard work, but proceed to send the aquifer law to town board to
But also thank Ken's group.
yes,
And thanks to the good work of whatever the Aquifer Protection Working Group, whatever it's called.
right. Aquifer protection working group. Okay. So we'll say considering everything.
Because
Anything.
Ken put together a whole group of meetings with the health department. I went to one at the wastewater treatment plant where we discussed all this, about, so that it was good work. And as a result, we feel we should send this law to the town board for its consideration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and should I say start the process, to officially start the process? Or is this process kind of already started? But what do we?
Because we can wait 1,000 years to have this law passed if we don't propose it.
Okay, so I'm going to say reactivate. I'll refer to it as reactivate the process to make this law. Okay, so here's kind of what I have here. I hope I can read my writing later. So I will, based on what I'm hearing, I will make a motion to thank the planning board and Ken's group, I'll put the actual name in, for their review and hard work in this law. I'll find better words, but
Finding the issues.
to create this law. Considering everything, we choose to proceed to send the aquifer law to the town board to officially reactivate the process to make this law. I know it's a little funny wording. I'll clean the wording up a little bit, but that's really what we want to do. Thank the planning board, thank the Aquifer Protection Group, and we have considered everything. And we want to push it through it's time to move it through the process. So that's the motion. I'm making a motion. Does anybody want to second that motion?
Second.
Oh, okay.
I think I heard Ed. Did I hear Ed first?
You heard Ed.
Okay. And I'll do a poll because there's only 4 of us. I say aye.
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 Michael, what do you say?
Are you there? Yep, he waved his hand.
Yeah, he's saying aye. Okay. So it's Ed, David, Michael, Laura, and Jeff left at 7 o'clock. Okay, cool. So we reviewed it. We reviewed the planning board stuff. We have we've looked at the map, and I didn't show everybody the law again, but you all had it to review. So So there we go. So we've addressed this. We're doing very well tonight. Let me go.
Congratulations.
And definitely thank you, Ken, because thank you for thank you for all of your work, and thank you for being there and your patience, because you've been to several of these meetings while we kind of get around to your stuff.
Well, I mean, it only became a critical path item until, last September. Before that, there's a lot of other things to work on before we reached the point of looking at the language again. And then, you had a lot of other things on your agenda.
Well, we did, and we're moving though, which is really good news.
Focus on affordable housing.
yeah, that'll be a snap. I'm sure we'll solve that in the blink of an eye.
Oh, that's the problem.
So that is actually our agenda for today. Anything else anybody else wanted to cover today?
No, I gotta go pretty soon.
Well, I think we're all I think we're all there. David or Mike, anything else?
Nope.
And we got away from David. Ken, anything else?
Oh.
Fabulous. We have a plan. Yay. So, okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Hey, Ed, second. I heard David. All in favor? Aye. I didn't see a wave from Michael. Michael wants to stay.
He's waving there.
He got a thumbs up. Yay. So, all right. Thank you very much, everybody. And I would say we'll talk in 2 weeks, but we won't really, because we're going to be on that housing call. So we'll talk in 4 weeks, but we will be on the housing call in 2 weeks. So thank you very much, everybody. We are moving along, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
And thank you, Ashley.
Ashley's got her mic off here. Huh?
Well, she's celebrating one of her son's birthdays, so she said she wouldn't be visible, but if we screamed, she'd hear us.
Okay.
So good night, Ashley, and happy birthday to your son. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ah, she did hear you.
Yay. Bye-bye.